Hey folks, Wish SE. Happy holidays to everyone. Hopefully you're having a fantastic time enjoying your family, relaxing and celebrating. I've been asked recently by a subscriber to give my thoughts on the top 5 easiest handguns to learn to shoot. And one of the things that I want to do in sharing with you some of my thoughts is make sure that you understand that this is just personal opinions. This is not a knock on any firearm that I'm not talking about. It's just simply saying, based on my experience as a shooter and based on my experience as an instructor when teaching new people about firearms and particularly handguns, what's really worked well, what systems, or what operating systems, what platforms have people related to and been able to shoot well in a relatively short period of time. So we're going to talk through my top 5, and I'll share with you a little bit about why I've chosen them. So to start with, part of the thing that I recommend people do when they're looking at any kind of platform is, first of all, defining why they want it and how they're going to use it. So you can walk into any gun shop and there will be a lot of salespeople who will tell you what you should buy. And what I recommend you do is you actually step back and say, what do I need the handgun for? Where will I be using it? How will I use it? Where will I store it? What kind of training am I going to get? So those are some of the questions you need to think through before you just go out and grab something that the salesperson is recommending. One of the things we see often with people who come to our classes is they have purchased a firearm purely based on what someone else told them versus on defining the mission that that gun will fill. That being said, I'm a huge advocate for starting with a full-sized handgun. So a full-size service pistol or revolver, mainly for the reason that mitigating recoil, having control, learning the fundamentals is far easier on a full-size gun than it is when you go with some sort of compact version. Again, compacts are great. I own lots of them. I use them for everyday carry. But one of the challenges with a small platform is it makes some of the firearms manipulation, some of the weapons craft more difficult. So I'm going to start with a caliber that everyone knows, and that's the .22 long rifle. There are multiple platforms for this, and again, I'm just sharing some of my preferences, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I feel the way I do. The first is the Ruger, and whether it's a Mark II or, in this case, a .22-45, I have found these to be incredibly reliable, durable, and easy for people to learn how to manipulate the gun. So obviously this .22-45 is a single action gun, and the hammer is only being dropped by the trigger itself. So the trigger is performing no other duty than dropping the hammer to ignite the primer and fire the cartridge. One reason I like the .22-45 is the grip angle is very natural for most people. They pick it up, they point the gun, and they're able to align the sights without much work. So the gun is one that's easy to manipulate, relatively inexpensive to shoot, and from my experience, very reliable. So I'm a big fan of the Ruger .22 platforms. That being said, there are many others that make, an outstanding choice. The other gun that I just think is fantastic for teaching is the Browning Buckmark. Again, multiple manufacturers make plenty of .22 platforms. I'm just sharing with you the ones that I like. The Browning, again, this Browning Buckmark has an absolutely fantastic trigger. It's a target gun, and it's just so much fun to shoot. Very reliable. Again, a natural pointer, feels great in the hands. And what we found when we're teaching new shooters is having them shoot a platform that they feel comfortable with and have success with immediately allows them to have the confidence and therefore the proficiency to deliver the hits on target. So again, Browning Buckmark, outstanding, definitely in my top 5. Not to leave out revolvers, because I think revolvers are an outstanding platform to teach people the fundamentals of firearm safety and their ability to run both in double and single action. So in this case we have a Smith & Wesson 686, again Ruger GP 100, right? Another top one, it would be certainly one that you could replace with this particular 686. This happens to be the one that I like. But again, these are full-size guns, so we're not going with, and though I like them, a compact snubby as that initial training tool, initial tool firearm that people are going to learn with. So what do I like so much about this? Well, first of all, it's big and heavy. What does that mean? Well, that means that steel frame is going to absorb felt recoil. So if you're shooting 38 specials, as most people do when they're first training and learning this platform, it's very soft shooting and very comfortable to shoot. Secondly, both Rugers and Smith & Wessons have outstanding triggers, out of the box for what they are. Now you can modify those, have them worked and polished and all that other stuff, but generally I have found great success with both Rugers and with the Smith & Wessons. One nice thing about this platform, of course, is you can teach people the process of a double action trigger, right? And the double action trigger, of course, is performing two functions. One is cocking the hammer, two, it's dropping the hammer. So with that in mind, you can teach people how this works. And you can teach them a great deal about the process of keeping your sights aligned as you press through that double action trigger. Of course, the other option is teaching people with single action shots, right? So we're cocking the hammer, and then in this case, we're simply dropping the hammer. So that will explain to people so they can understand the concept of single action. Again, whether it's this, it's a Ruger, whoever else, I'm simply sharing with you, while I think a revolver definitely needs to be in that top 5 of easy guns for new shooters to shoot well, and develop confidence with. Then as we look into auto-loading packages, there are all sorts of fantastic guns. So before I get yelled and screamed at, I tell you I love the 1911 platform. However, it's not going to be in my top 5 for teaching new shooters. And that very short single action mode is one that brand new shooters need some time on to really develop the skills. Again, I'm not saying it can't be done, and I'm not saying it's not a great platform. It's just not in my top 5 because the size of the cartridge, 45 ACP, for some people they feel that's too much. And secondly, just learning and having the dexterity of, right, once I rack the slide chamber around, my safety's got to go on. So I'm now having to add something to the process that for some new shooters can be a challenge. Not saying it can't be overcome, I'm just saying that's why it's not in my top 5. So the last two guns, and again, this is just personal preference, but I really like full-size semi-automatic pistols. And one reason I like striker-fired guns so very much is there is nothing for the shooter to do other than keep their fingers straight until they're on target, made a conscious decision to press a shot. There's nothing else for them to do in terms of either pressing through a long double action and then transitioning to single action or working just a single action trigger. It's a consistent trigger press on every single shot. With both the Glocks and the other gun that happens to be in my top 5, it's sort of, I guess 4 because, again, similar, would be the Smith & Wesson M&P. And again, why do I like the striker-fired guns? Because they're easier for new shooters to master. Now, what about SIG 226? What about all the other Berettas out there? Again, great platforms. My issue is the gun is designed to be carried with a round chambered and on in a double action mode. Most people who purchase that type of platform purchase it and go out and they'll chamber around and shooting in single action mode only. They're not actually learning the gun the way it was intended to be used. Again, it's not that it can't be used that way. Many people just go out and plank and they never shoot at double action. However, from a defensive standpoint, unless you're only going to carry in condition 3, so a magazine in the gun but no round chambered, unless you're going to always carry like that, you really need to learn to run the gun as it's set up to run. That process, transitioning from double action to single action in a semi-auto pistol, is difficult for a new shooter. Again, for those of you who are more experienced and once you've learned a platform, right, you can absolutely master that. There are hundreds of thousands of people who run double action semi-autos, and they do an outstanding job. I'm not taking anything away from that at all. So again, these are my top 5, and you'll note we have 2 striker fired guns, we have a revolver, and we have 2 .22 pistols. For me, teaching people, what I like is simplicity and consistency. Your average brand new shooter needs to have some positive experiences right out of the gate as they're learning to run the gun. That translates into wanting to practice more, getting training, getting out to range, competing, doing all those other things that make you a better shooter. So in summary, whatever platform that you choose, you got to practice with it. You also got to train with it. If you're not quite sure how the gun operates, read the manual. And then step 2 is go out and get some training. There are all kinds of different training options out there. Obviously, On Target Training would love to have you as a client, but it doesn't matter where you go. You've got to get the training with people who are going to really make sure that you're safe in your weapons handling, and then they can give you the coaching tips to help make you a more proficient shooter. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on the top 5 easiest handguns to learn, and ultimately it's up to you folks. These are my recommendations. This is what we've found success in teaching our students. But whatever you get, I don't care. I'm agnostic as to the brand. I do know this: sights are important, a good consistent trigger press is important, and reliability. All the brands that I've discussed, as well as shown you here today, are very reliable brands. Please understand, many people make striker-fired guns. Those striker-fired guns would do just as well as what we've shown you here. Walther makes a great striker-fired gun. HK is just their PV9, I think it is an outstanding gun as well. XDs, the Springfield XD series, outstanding. So, not knocking any of those, just sharing with you some of the ones that work well for us in our training, and check them out. So that's it. My 2 cents on the top 5 easiest handguns to learn. Thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate all of you. Happy holidays, and as always, stay safe.